Welcome back to Inspired or Acquired. This is the podcast where we interview real business owners, talk real numbers, and ask them whether or not they would sell their business. We have a fun one today. We are here with Shane Ehrsam, who is the owner of North Texas Trailers, and has a pretty amazing growth story and pretty amazing acquisition story. So we're going to dig in with him. And as always, I'm joined with my co-host, Clint Fiore, M&A specialist, also out of Texas. So Shane, how are you today?
I'm excellent, Patrick. How are you?
Doing great. It's good to be here with you. Always enjoy talking to you.
You as well.
This is going to be a good show. Love your story.
Thank you.
Let's start there. So if people don't know your story, tell us a little bit about, how long you've owned this business and what the business does.
I'll keep it relatively quick. I spent 11 years with the same company, basically climbing the middle management ladder, starting off from the ground level, managing blue collar union route employees to managing the whole state of Texas and about $125 million P&L with 750 total employees. And, through that time was very energized by that corporate climb, but ultimately looked at, the folks that I reported to and the kind of the next steps of that ladder and realized maybe that's not what I want to be doing long-term. And my father is a business owner. He owns a home healthcare franchise in Arizona, still does 29 years later. And so that it was always kind of the North Star is to be a business owner, but the longer you stay in corporate, the bigger the golden handcuffs get and the harder it gets to walk away. And so they made that decision for me, and I was laid off in fall of 21. And that set me down the business buying path. And I didn't initially know that was what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted to end up being a business owner. And so I explored franchises and I explored, other things. But the more I learned about being able to buy a cash flowing asset and, maintain basically the level of salary if structured right and if ultimately finding the right business, while then having an asset that you gain equity in. And at a financial standpoint, it makes a ton of sense. But from a lifestyle and from an ownership and being able to direct my own path and take ownership over my work-life balance and, have something that I was able to truly lead with the kind of direction and style that I wanted to be able to lead in. That was always a frustration in corporate, was being told what to do and how to do it and not always agreeing that was the right thing to do. So that set me down the path, and I did, listen to the podcast, joined the acquisition lab with Walker Deibel, read his book, obviously, and did a local geographic search in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and ended up finding North Texas Trailers.
So was your search parameters just kind of got to be DFW, but you were open to different business models? And what ended up leading you to trailers?
Yeah, it was definitely a geographic search. I thought DFW was big enough that I could keep it within DFW and still find a good enough business. My corporate experience was in a B2B service, uniform service company. So I looked for other B2B service style companies, and I really thought I'd get into commercial landscaping or maybe pest control or janitorial services, something along those lines. I knew that business model very well, and it's obviously an attractive business model in the world of ETA for a number of reasons. But I was open to anything, and I continue to find examples from the Harvard Business Book and Search Funder and other folks that would acquire these really unique niche businesses and industries I didn't even know existed. And so I would try to communicate that to brokers like yourself and say, hey, I want a B2B service business, but I'm open to other good businesses, as long as the business has history, has, good financial performance, a good set of employees. The only thing I didn't want to do was an exclusively digital or online business, because that's not my forte, or food service, or restaurant specifically. But other than that, I was open, and I didn't think it would be in a retail dealership or trailers, but the more I looked at this business, the more it made sense. And I ultimately found this because I networked with a number of brokers in the DFW area and gave him my pitch of what I was looking for. And he said, well, I don't have that, but I do have this trailer business. Let me tell you about it. And away we went.
Well, you found a brokered deal. And so this was just on the market. You just found it on a website, or was it in a a broker's back pocket, or how'd you find it?
It eventually made it to Biz Buy Sell into the broker's website, but I actually got in touch with the broker before it made either of those things. He had just gotten the listing, and so he was able to send me financials before they were publicly available. I was able to meet with the seller before it was listed. So that speed definitely gave me an advantage when it came to negotiating the LOI and ultimately getting this thing under contract.
Super cool. Can you tell us about the numbers of the business when you bought it and where it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the business was started in 2007. So 15 years old when I bought it. There were 3 locations. We still have 3 locations. We're basically 30 minutes apart from each other in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And each location has kind of a similar setup. There's a salesperson, 2 trailer technicians or mechanics, 2 kind of parts and service advisors that are customer facing. And then we have some administrative folks. The business had showed good, steady growth. And then in the pandemic, trailer dealers experienced this kind of massive, crazy event of inflation and being able to crazy demand with low supply, which obviously equals the ability to sell a trailer for whatever you can price it at. And so the business exploded financially in 2021. And so that was the financials I was looking at. So prior to COVID or prior to 2021, the business was doing around $7.5 million in revenue, around 15% margins. And in 2021, that exploded up to $9.5 million and even higher margins, but knowing that was kind of a one-time event. And so that was part of the challenge, as well as the opportunities, forecasting what is this going to look like in a post-COVID world, or when some of this demand slows down and inventory catches up, and trying to forecast that. And I had a very reasonable, experienced broker, very reasonable, experienced sellers, and they realized this was a one-time event, and you couldn't just add a multiplier to 2021's results and expect that that's what it's going to sell for. So we did look at more of a 3-year blended average with kind of a heavier weight towards the higher numbers, because what ultimately happened was the cost inputs for our manufacturers and our across the industry went up, and they've kind of stayed up. So the cost of a trailer is nearly 60-70% up from what it was pre-COVID, and manufacturers have kept those costs the same. And so the average revenue per trailer has gone up significantly. And that's true across the industry.
Yeah.
And these trailers are like kind of work trailers, right? It's like landscapers, contractors, farmers, not like camping, stuff like that, not recreational, right?
We don't do any camper vans or RVs or boat trailers or anything like that. We sell work trailers, cargo, utility, dump, flatbed. So yeah, pretty much mostly for work, municipality type customers. But we do get, homeowners who want a little dump trailer, utility trailer for their side-by-side or whatever it might be.
Got it.
You had a very interesting way that you structured your deal, and I thought it was pretty brilliant. I think it took some coordination with you and your broker and kind of the education you got from Walker and the acquisition lab, because I feel like you were kind of on the a little outside the norm in how you structured it, with kind of max leverage, but still did it in a way that created some safety for you. So you didn't come in with a massive down payment. You did apply a lot of leverage, but could you just kind of explain the basics of the structure that you put together on this deal?
Yeah. So as I learned about, typical SBA financing and the 10% down payment that's required, and, the post-closing liquidity that most bankers require, it kind of led me to believe that the max size of a business I could buy was $2.5 million. And you kind of did all the math. But then I learned about the ROBS program and using your 401k. And so that said, okay, well, maybe if I find the right business and I empty my 401k, that gives me access to more of a down payment. So that was always in the back of my head. And as I found this business, I ended up purchasing it for more than that. It was a $4 million purchase price. And so I was very honest with the broker right from the beginning that this is this is above what I thought I was capable of. And I'd still like to maintain 100% ownership if the need is that I need to go out and raise money, I can do that, but I would prefer to keep this with 100% ownership. And so we were able to use a full standby seller note, as well as a standard seller note with a little bit of a partial standby to help qualify for that down payment. And ultimately, was basically a 95% levered deal with when you include all the seller notes included, and then the SBA portion was 80%.
And did you end up doing the ROBs or no?
I didn't. No, I looked at it. The ROBS program itself, I think, is really good for those who have a ton of their net worth tied up in their 401k. Not that high of a percentage was in my 401k, and it honestly was going to be easier just to liquidate it, pay the penalty. And I was prepared to do that. But I ended up structuring a short-term loan with my father, and he was generous enough to help kind of bridge that gap so that I didn't have to tap into my 401k, but was prepared to do that to maintain that 100% ownership.
Nice. I'm not a huge fan of the ROBS thing. I think if you have to do it to get in the game, sure. But yeah, I think there's a lot of tax consequences that aren't great. But
yeah, that's the more I learned about it, the more restrictions it seemed like it came with, and it seemed like the 10% penalty plus tax implications just to liquidate would have been the easier way to do it if I needed that money.
Hey guys, wanted to take a quick break from the show just to tell you about our companies for a second. I'm Patrick Dichter, and I own Appletree Business Services. We do quality accounting and tax nationwide. So if you're running a business or looking to buy a business, we'd love to help you out with accounting and tax services. You can find us at appletreebusiness.com. And Clint, tell us about Bison Business.
Yeah, Bison Business is my firm. We do nationwide M&A. So we help people buy and sell companies. Most of our customers have companies in the 1 to 20 million revenue range, profitable businesses. So if you've got one and you're ready to get acquired, you can reach out to us at bisonbusiness.com for a complimentary evaluation. We can get you to market and get you sold. If you're a listener that's a buyer that wants to buy a company that size, make sure you're on our email list, because we'll send you out deals first before they hit the market anywhere else. But we'd love to serve you anytime you're thinking of acquiring or selling your business. We want to be your first stop at Bison Business.
Awesome. Now back to the show.
But you were able to obtain a $4 million and change business with 150, 200 down, something like that, with the way you structured it.
It's pretty awesome.
Indeed. Yeah.
A lot of people's biggest fear, first off, that's amazing. A lot of people's biggest fear is like, well, what about the interest rate being floating on the SBA debt, and the interest rates went up after you bought it? Did that bite you, or did you've been in here 2 years. Did the 2 year standby coming back online to the seller, did that bite you? Like, how did you navigate those obstacles to not feel like the max leverage came back to create pain in your life later?
First of all, I got lucky in a lot of ways, but it was also the product of right timing, right relationships. And I had multiple bankers I was talking to well before I found this business. And because of those relationships, and because the business itself was a good business, I was able to actually get a fixed rate SBA note, which I know is very rare. And so as the rates, nearly doubled shortly after I acquired, luckily I was immune to that increase. And so had I been, that definitely would have made for some challenging times and would continue to be a challenge. But I was able to maintain a locked rate, at least for the first 5 years. And then, as my seller notes have now come online and are due, cash flow looks different today than it did, last year. But it's all part of what is expected and what this business can produce. I was given the advice to go get money when you don't need money. So I was able to get a line of credit that I've never used last year or 2 years ago when cash flow was good and before these seller payments were due. And we've never had to tap that. I don't plan on tapping that. And I try to keep a very healthy nest egg, that's in the business's name, that's ready to go to cover any expenses. And I know that the number one thing as a business owner, my number one responsibility is to not run out of money, to make sure that cash flow can maintain and we can continue to pay our employees, our vendors, and keep the lights on.
That's awesome, man. Well, the fixed rate loan and the conservative, way you structure the payments to everyone, I think really helps you get through that. Talk to us about 2024's performance. So it sounds like you had that unusually high year in 2021 to before you bought it, and then the demand pulled back a little bit as things stabilized. But have you gone through a bit of a J curve? Have things started curving back up after it's a down year in 22, 23?
Yeah, we're definitely experiencing the J curve from a net profit standpoint, but sales have continued to grow. I've actually been able to have record years, 23 and 24, in top line revenue. We've grown about 20% since 2021 in top line, but we've added a lot. I've added a lot more cost to the business, and most of that has been intentional. I've increased our headcount from 16 to 24. I have added some leadership positions. I've invested in training from outside consultants and training companies. And then some of it is just, cost of business. Insurance costs have gone way up. Obviously we have interest expense and our floor planning interest. That's a way that we pay for our inventory, is we have that on a line of credit. Those interest rates were not locked, and those interest rates continue to go up, as well as the amount of inventory we carry now is much higher than what we used to. So, so the operational expenses in the business have definitely increased, and I believe, and I have pretty good path forward in 2025, that as we continue to grow at hopefully 10 to 15%, really stretching for maybe 20% growth in 2025, while being smart about reducing some of these operational expenses and or maintaining, we can hopefully increase our EBITDA percentage a couple basis points. But there's definitely been a big reinvestment into the business, and at times that has made cash flow tight.
I see on your on the form you filled out for us before the show that you said you did about 11.5 million in revenue. So that was that 20% growth that you've experienced, and you're over 10% EBITDA margin, right?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I mean, I always like to pose this question. I know you're very early in this journey, hypothetically. So I still think your value hasn't changed probably a lot since you bought it, but your inventory's increased, your balance sheet has grown in cash and decreased in debt. You might have a little bit of growth in enterprise value just because of the higher headcount, the more robust systems, building this to be, just a stronger bones here of this business that I think is going to be reflected in the premium you'll be able to get one day. So let's just pretend we could wipe out all the debts, put $1 million in your pocket, and say, "Hey, that was a fun year." What? I'm assuming that's a no, because you're growing, and I couldn't tempt you to sell at this point. But like, what would be the point where you'd be like, "You know what, Clint? I think this has been a fun ride. I'm ready to step off." Or like, are you building this thing towards a target? Or like, how do you think about, now that you own this thing, how do you think about your future in terms of when you would exit and why?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I try not to think about it too much and take away my focus from, running and building this company. But I'm an active listener of your podcast, of Will's podcast, and I hear all these amazing acquisition entrepreneurs and some amazing things that people are doing. I mean, Patrick, you're one of them. You bought a business, you're continuing, both organic and inorganic growth. Johannes Hawk is somebody that I met early in my journey, who was also a guest of yours, and his growth story is crazy. Mm-hmm. There's folks like that have this intense focus in, doing either a roll up within their industry or, looking for inorganic opportunities to add to. I'm not opposed to those things, and I'm not my mentality is, as long as I am the owner of North Texas Trailers, I'm committed to this industry and growing this business to be the best possible business it can be. Not necessarily the biggest business, but the best possible business it can be. and making all of those improvements so that it is a very desirable, sellable asset. But I didn't buy North Texas Trailers because I'm an industry expert, and this was what I knew the best, and I had this elaborate, plan. I saw this as a great business, and so long term, my plan is to hold this indefinitely and build up the leadership team so that I don't have to be the day-to-day operator, and probably hold until somebody makes some stupid offer, much more than what we're worth, if that ever were to come up. But until that happens, and I don't think it will anytime soon, I'm going to look for those organic and for the right inorganic opportunities. That's, we will reach a ceiling at some point with our capacity, with our footprint, with the 3 locations we have. We will max out on size and earnings at some point, and that point is probably not for another 5-ish years, if not more. So there will be a time where the only way to grow is to add locations, or add more square footage, or add more service bays, add people. And, I definitely see myself growing through that. I've looked at other trailer dealers that were on the market and put in a couple offers on ones that made sense, but haven't been able to pull the trigger on any of those. So as long as I'm in this business, I'm committed to this, but I don't have necessarily a big, elaborate, hyper-focused growth plan or roll-up plan. And so, if I fast forward 5 years from now and say we've continued at, 15% growth and we're doing 15% margins, and I'm not the day-to-day operator, I have a good leadership team, do I look to buy other businesses in other industries and maybe have somewhat of a mini holdco? I think that would be really interesting, versus just trying to stay, only focused in the trailer business. But like I said, as long as I'm in it, as long as I'm the one running the business every day, this is what I'm focused on, and I just want to make North Texas Trailers the best possible business it can be.
That's awesome, man. I think having that mindset, whatever comes, knowing that you're not going anywhere for a while, but being a good steward of the asset and building it to sell is, it always pays off. So
I'm hyper committed to my team and making this the best possible place to work for them, and then continue, creating an environment that we recruit and attract great, talented folks, and we become, the premier dealership in our industry and in our region. And I have some great competition that's ahead of me, and so I have a lot of work to do. Are you
the big fish in the Texas pond? Are you mid-sized fish? What's it look like?
I would say there's definitely a big separation. There's kind of the biggest players, and there's national players. There's some regional players, and then there's kind of like local bigger players. And I'm probably one of the bigger fish in the local players.
Got it.
But there's, like I said, national and regional players out there that are doing really, really well. And, that's who I look up to, and that's who I look at as the measuring stick.
Yeah. One of our staff accountants at our company, they had a family equipment rental business with 3 locations in New England. And I asked her, like, why did you sell? And they basically seen everyone around them get gobbled up by the big national player. And she was like, we knew there would be a time where we wouldn't be able to get the asking price that we wanted. And in the meantime, they had diversified with real estate and some other things. And she was just like, we could see the train coming, so.
Mm-hmm.
Shane, how old are you, and what's your family situation?
I turned 38 in 2 months, and I'm expecting my first child next week.
Whoa.
Congratulations.
I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes. We're having a baby boy.
Very, very
Awesome.
cool. You heard it here, folks. You heard it first. Baby Ehrsam.
Yeah. And I couldn't be more excited for obvious reasons, but, especially now being in the position I am as a business owner with the flexibility that I have, and contrasting this to what my life would have looked like in my previous role. I was traveling a lot, and, I plan on taking 2 weeks completely away from the business, when baby's born. And then, my paternity leave, if you will, quote unquote, I plan on playing it by ear. The business doesn't need me every single day. I'm still the only one that can sign checks, and, I'm still looking at the bank account every day, and I'm still giving, direction. But to keep the trains on time, I'm not needed. So it's a huge blessing that, this period of our life, that I have that opportunity.
Was your wife supportive of your acquisition process, or what did she think when you told her one day, when you're this successful manager at this big company, hey babe, I'm thinking about going this new direction? How did that go down?
Well, keep in mind I was laid off, so that was a surprise to both of us. And,
Okay.
and so she works full time. She loves what she does and has a good job. And so, but we definitely relied on my salary and our combined earnings for the lifestyle that we had grown accustomed to. And so it was just like, hey, you're a smart, capable individual. Figure out what makes sense. Figure out what the next step looks like. And so as I, kept her involved, and I was like, hey, I found this buy then build book. Hey, I'm going to join this acquisition lab. It's not cheap, but I really think this is the right thing to do. And hey, I think I'm going to buy a business. It was like, hey, I trust in you. You're smart. You're capable. Just, do the right thing. And I have full trust and belief in you. And in the meantime, I'm going to just stay focused on my job and work my butt off and make sure that, and she really did. She stepped up to the plate. She worked extra hours, took on extra projects, did, additional things to bring in additional income to support during that time frame. So that was huge. And I couldn't have done it without her support.
That's awesome. And do you feel like going through the acquisition lab was helpful to you?
Immensely. I've bragged on it in other media, but Walker is obviously, his reputation speaks for itself, and the buy then build book speaks for itself. But the benefit that I got from working alongside other acquisition entrepreneurs who were going down this path at the same time, some who are way ahead of me, some who had already acquired, some who were just in the very beginning like I was, some who were dedicated to it full time like I was, and some who were just dipping their toe and just trying to learn what acquisition entrepreneurship is like. It was so helpful to have those mentors, not just the coaches, they obviously were extremely valuable, but the other people, the other lab members, the cohort that I went through to bounce ideas off of. My broker outreach strategy, I just copied and pasted from another lab member how he did it in a different part of the country, LOI templates. And there's a lot of other ways to get that information now. But yeah, the acquisition lab was immensely impactful for me.
Great. Well, shout out to Walker. He's a mutual friend of ours. I just got to see him this week. Always enjoy my time with him. But yeah, he's got one of the premier educational programs in the entrepreneurship through acquisition space, and definitely recommend check out the acquisition lab. Free plug for you, Walker, my man.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
you are the poster boy, Shane. Bought a great big business and you perform well with it. I had a couple of follow-up questions. So if you're thinking growth, let's just say hypothetically, you've got 50 or 150 or 250K worth of cash that you could deploy. What's the best use? Is it buying more inventory so you have more product, or is it expanding services? Or, I know we've talked about potentially trying to buy the real estate that you operate on. Like, how do you think about capital allocation as you guys are trying to grow 15 or 20% a year?
My priority since buying this business was always the next step would be buying the properties, which I still rent from the previous owners and continue to appreciate. Dallas-Fort Worth is an area where real estate has gone up in value significantly and probably will continue to go up in value. So that's priority number one. And I think I'll be able to accomplish that this year. I would have been able to do that in 2024, but as I mentioned earlier, I was working on this brokered deal that was it was twice the size of our business, or the asking price was twice the size, and the business would have more than doubled our business. And so I had some money allocated for that, and I worked on that for several months. And then when that deal fell through, I kind of looked at other investments and other ways to spend that capital versus just going in on the properties, and I've made some other small business investments, which I'm very excited for, and I think will pay off immensely in the long term. But my priority right now is buying the properties, not just for the financial benefits, but also so that I have ownership over our properties. Unlike in so many ETA businesses where the business is independent of the property, we're a retail business, and our location is very we are very dependent on our location, the growth in the areas around us, being known as the dealer in this area, and so there's a lot I want to do to improve the properties, and I don't want to do that or can't do that as a tenant. And so that's kind of the biggest step. And then from there, I would say, additional capital injection would go towards building out leadership capabilities and or service capabilities, whether that be maybe a mobile service repair, more of a subscription maintenance style program for repair services, or just kind of additional employees, leaders to run those programs. Or
Got it. Very cool. Well, I'm excited to see you on the real estate as well and be able to control your destiny there and keep improving it. The other thing I wanted to follow up on, your dad, I didn't know that piece of it, that he's owned this franchise for 29 years. Non-medical home health? Is that what it is?
Non-medical home health. They have over 1,000 plus locations, and he was the second franchisee.
And you didn't get talked into that franchise, or?
Oh, I did. From age, however old I was when he bought it to now. The goal was always kind of have my sister and I get into the business one way or another. Long story short, I went away to college. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. I left to go to school here in Fort Worth. And then I moved around a bunch with my old job. And I really wanted to kind of establish my own career and my own opportunities. And eventually I realized I didn't want to live in Tucson, to be honest. And I met my wife in the Northeast, and we're big city people, and Tucson is just is not that for us. And so, it just didn't really enter the cards. My dad's really proud of obviously what I've done with this business, and we talk. We have such an awesome relationship and are able to talk now very strategically about what are we doing in our individual businesses. And there's things that he's taught, obviously a lot he's taught me, and there's some things that I've taught him. And he's getting to that point where he's now got some management in place that's helping him run the business, so he can kind of be a little step away day to day. And Clint, I'm sure like a lot of sellers that you work with, he's got that age-old dilemma where the cash flow, the annual cash flow is too beneficial to give up for the one-time payment and selling. So he's trying to analyze that, and at some point it'll be the right time for him to sell. And at this point, all I do is try to advise him in the best way to do that and create additional value to protect that asset, so that when he is ready, he's working with the right people to do so, or he's got the right tailwinds behind him to make it as an attractive purchase, as an attractive asset as possible.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. I'm sure Grandpa is super proud of what you're doing. I'm sure holiday discussions are a little different now that you're both entrepreneurs. So,
indeed.
One other follow-up question I had. I know you're thoughtful, forward-looking. How are you going to put another 3 or 4 points of EBITDA into this thing?
Yeah, like I said, the EBITDA percentage has gone down since pre-acquisition, and that's, I think, a big difference in mindset in running the business. The old owners were very focused on limiting expenses and maximizing cash flow, whereas, and not to say that's not important or wrong, that's definitely the way business owners should be focused in a lot of ways. But I see the growth potential of this business to be much more than where it was. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to reinvest for that growth. And I'm trying to, I'm struggling at times with, all right, well, should I invest now, even though we don't necessarily have the sales to cover this investment, but invest now to grow that, to reach that growth that I'm looking for, versus wait till we have the growth to make the investment. Whether that's people, that's training, like I talked about, that's systems, advertising. There's been a lot of things where I have come in and I've spent money, and I've tried new things that the business never tried before. And some things have been really successful and other things haven't been as successful, and the ROI hasn't really paid off. So some of it's a learning curve for me, what makes the most sense. And so this year I have a very clear growth plan while keeping kind of our operational expenses the same. as
Okay.
well as maybe eliminating some of, or reducing or eliminating some of the experimental operational expenses.
Got it. That's great. So if you can grow top line and operations stay fixed, then hopefully it falls to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Nice. I think you're an awesome example too of just as your input costs went up, revenue has gone up, but you were able to kind of maintain your margin. We have interviewed a few people on the podcast who, whether it was, home services or others, where they had record years, but their input costs went up and they didn't watch that close enough. And then it came in and bit them, 6, 12, 18 months later, where they had a huge cash crunch as they had to go fulfill those orders and fulfill those customers. So kudos to you for being able to maintain those, even in the low teens,
Yeah, thank you. It's a big part of also recognizing your different revenue streams, right? And this is applicable to all businesses that have diversified revenue streams. In a dealership environment, everyone knows this, you make a lot more money on parts and service than you do when you sell a car or a trailer. The revenue is much higher per trailer that I sell. And it's literally 9 to 10 times per transaction what I do on parts and service. But the gross profit of that transaction is significantly higher on parts and service. And so, while I'm trying to grow both and stay focused on growing both, because one leads to the other, the more trailers you sell, the more trailers you have the opportunity to maintain and service, and vice versa. We have significantly grown our parts and service. Our growth rate on our parts and service has been nearly 50% since 2021 versus about 15% on our trailer sales. And so that has led to a much healthier gross profit. And so we're going to continue to, try to grow both equally, but if I have to grow $1 versus another, I'm going to grow my parts and service business.
Got
Do
it.
you have internal warranties or financing that you sell?
We work with financiers and then our manufacturers have warranties on their trailers. And so we'll do the warranty work on behalf of the manufacturer and get paid by the manufacturer. And then as far as financing, we work with third-party vendors to do that. That to me is a whole nother business model that you really have to understand and then have kind of dedicated personnel specific to offering in-house financing. And one thing I realized, Clint, in owning this business is there's a lot of different things you can do. There's, as I look at my competition, there's trailer dealers who sell, hunting blinds and power sports, ATVs and power sports or tractors or things like that. And some do in-house financing. Some even try to do rent to own. Mm-hmm. And there's all these different ways to make money, right? And so I've looked at those opportunities. And the one thing I continue to come back to is, what do we do well today? And let's just do that better. Let's just get better at doing that one thing. We sell trailers well. We sell parts well. We sell repairs well. In fact, we used to rent trailers forever. And there's a lot of dealers that rent trailers, and we actually just discontinued that going into this year. It was a loss leader for us. It was such a minuscule amount of money for the overall headache that it was causing, that it was just like, let's just jettison that. Let's focus on repairing and maintaining more trailers and selling more trailers. And if we do that, and we do it well, the income will come from there.
Love the focus. Yeah, I mean, it's a choose your battles type of thing. I've sold some dealerships of various things, and when you get into financing and warranty sales, like sometimes those can end up becoming your main focus almost, because they can be real money makers, but they can also be real distracting. So just kind of picking your battles. But yeah, I appreciate your thoughtfulness there. So you're kind of, in my opinion, Shane, almost like the poster child of a lot of folks that are coming into this industry. It's like you were in your mid-30s when you made this deal. You left kind of a corporate background to become your own boss, your own entrepreneur. You got the perfect size deal, in my opinion, like right in that sweet spot, right at the high end of your personal financial capability and right at the high end of the SBA programs, lending limits. And I mean, that's right where a lot of people want to be. Cool business, structured it well. So it's like you're you're checking all these check boxes that's like the dream scenario for a lot of buyers. And you went through the acquisition lab on the way and applied those lessons. Anything super surprise you in this process that was just, after your first 2 years of running this? Because you were on Twitter, you went through these learning programs, you had an idea of what this was going to be like, but now that you've been in the driver's seat, is anything like substantially different than what you were prepared for?
I came into this pretty eyes wide open. I mean, having a father as a small business owner for the last nearly 30 years is, I've seen so much of what he's experienced. So I knew a lot of what to expect, whether from him or from others that had gone ahead of me. But living those experiences is far different than hearing about them, right? And I posted about this recently, cash flow. I mean, in our business, I literally, before this, had a meeting. We have a fractional CFO we work with. And unlike so many other businesses, imagine like Patrick's business, for instance, where cash flows can be relatively predictable. In our business, it's not. I mean, we can sell 5 trailers one week and 35 trailers the next week. It really just depends. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars swing in, from one week to another or 1 month to another, just depending on what we're able to sell or sales trends. We don't struggle as much like some businesses with AR and collections. We generally are, getting paid at the time of sale. But but my SBA payment happens on the same day every month. My rent occurs on the same day every month. My people get paid every 2 weeks. There's just certain expenses that happen. And then there's unexpected ones. Insurance went up this year pretty significantly, and, making a down payment towards that. There's other, I got to buy, we might have to buy new forklifts at some point, like those types of capital investments, as well as just operational expenses. And just living that every day of like, hey, how much money is coming in and what are my outflows? And, I know this business is profitable. I'm looking at a P&L that shows me it's profitable. We're doing great revenue. We're growing, but, depending on the time of the day or the time of the month or when it is, do we have enough money to cover our expenses and our unexpected expenses? And like I said, we have plenty of cushion. I've been strategic about building that up, but just living that every day is very different feeling. The other real difference, especially coming from a corporate kind of white collar-ish background, even though it was in a blue collar industry, is working in a retail environment with multiple stores. So when I try to do a team meeting, my people are first responsible to the customers. So when a customer walks in or we get a phone call, they got to exit the meeting I'm having with them to deal, to handle the customer. And so I don't know that we've had a team meeting where we've had 100% attendance for the entire length of the meeting, right? That just doesn't happen in a retail environment unless I were to have meetings before or after work hours, and my people already work, long, hard hours as it is. I don't want to keep them here later or earlier than I have to. So, trying to roll out company-wide initiatives or get certain company-wide messages across to a multi-location business that's in a retail environment has been challenging and it's frustrating because you just can't get the attention of the team as consistently or coherently as you can. And then getting everyone under one roof, we either got to do it after retail hours or we got to close. And so that's challenging. So, just different business dynamics because of the type of business we are and having multiple locations. Those were some of the challenges I didn't necessarily expect.
Great, and they're only going to get bigger, right?
Exactly. They're only going to get bigger when we, I have competitors that I'm friendly with and I look up to that have, 10, 15 locations, 100 plus employees. And I'm just constantly in awe of like, okay, the challenges that I have running an all hands meeting or, a company-wide initiative, how do you do that at scale? And, I was able to do that in my corporate life, but that was just a different environment. We weren't a retail business where people were coming to us and coming to our place of business. So just different, but, you manage around it.
I'm sure you'll figure it out because, you figure all this stuff out and you do a great job, man. So this has been fun. Clint, do you have anything else for?
No, I just think it's such a cool story. Shane's in his 30s, about to have a baby. Now owns 100%. Given he's got quite a bit of debt, he's got to work his way through, but it's cash flowing and servicing the debt on its own. Owns 100% of a business that's worth probably $5 million and could be worth a lot more in the future if he keeps the growth rate going. And he got into it with a modest 6-figure investment that's attainable for people that are working good corporate jobs and putting money aside and want to get into this game. Like, this isn't just a Twitter thread theory. Like there's real people creating real wealth, taking good care of these legacy businesses. And it's trailers. It's not rocket science. He's selling things that everybody needs. These are work trailers. There's always going to be need for that. As long as business is happening in the DFW area, they're going to need North Texas trailers. So I love what you're doing. I like the industry, salt of the earth stuff. And I think you're doing a great job with it. Really impressive stuff, Shane. If people want to, first off, shout out to your business. Like, who can buy a trailer from you? Do they got to be in Dallas, or do you ship them, or like, give us a little plug here for North Texas Trailers.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, we actually ship definitely within the state of Texas. We will ship outside of the state of Texas where it makes sense. That becomes challenging and doesn't always become cost effective when you're going much further than that, because there are dealers obviously across the country. But we will ship within the state of Texas. We're North Texas Trailers. We locations in the DFW area, McKinney, Louisville, and Fort Worth. We have a great team. We do high quality repairs. Our tagline is we sell the best and service the rest. So we really only look at kind of premium, higher end manufacturers that we partner with, and we sell their trailers because they have great warranties. They believe in their product. They build a great product. And then, for every other trailer that's out there, we'll take great care of it and maintain it and service it for you. And when it breaks down, which it eventually will, we're here to help and fix it for you. So we'd love to take care, especially of any business owners, we do a lot of government business with local municipalities, but everyday homeowners. If you have a side-by-side, or you want to do a little camping trailer, not a camper, but a camping trailer, or just a little storage shed, we can help with that too.
Great. So if you need a trailer in Texas, go to North Texas Trailers. They'll help you out. Or if you need a repair on one. And then Shane, if folks want to just follow you on LinkedIn or Twitter, or, just for your entrepreneurial journey, I see you're posting some of your stories along the way and kind of keeping people in the loop on your progress. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you that way?
Yeah, I've really come around on this. I used to think of LinkedIn as just an annoying place for salespeople to try to hit me up. But now I'm getting much more active and trying to share, good, useful content along the way, as well as just, network. I think I've realized there is no downside to building your network of people, and especially in an area as big as Dallas, Fort Worth, or Texas. There's so many great business leaders, both small business, big business, service providers, connectors, and I want to meet those folks and be involved with them. And so I try to get back to people as fast as I can, and try to stay as active as I can. And now transitioning some of that to Twitter and trying to build that presence up a little bit, but certainly behind the curve compared to the two of you on the Twitter sphere.
All right. Well, we'll put your LinkedIn profile and your Twitter profile in the show notes so folks can find you. But just want to wrap it up here, I think, unless you have anything else, Patrick. Really enjoyed having you, Shane. Awesome story. Again, just poster child for ETA. I just love it. If people don't believe this is possible, I'm going to send them to this podcast from now on. But really appreciate you coming on, and we'll keep up with you. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Patrick.